Una's talking with Laan,
Hmm.
and Laan says something with her language that's subtle, which is really brutal.
You think this contamination might be related to them?
I don't know what to think.
Well, it seems to me things like this are exactly why the Federation is so wary of genetically modified species like the Illyrians.
Species.
Okay,
She
what's the
says
problem?
genetically modified species, like the Illyrians. So my understanding was that
Modified
humans
species
are
like the
still
Illyrians.
right. So humans are humans, and then we went out in space and we colonized different
Hmm.
planets, and some of them wanted to genetically modify themselves, which were the Illyrians, right?
Hmm.
And here is Laan, like a
Hmm.
human in the Federation, and she calls them a separate species. Like that's heavy. That's a heavy word.
You're saying because the Illyrians are actually human?
Well, I guess this
And
is the question. It's how much genetic drift do you need before you're no longer human?
I think is significant. Well, I mean, what's the definition of a species? A species is one where if you inseminate a female or are a female getting inseminated, then
Yep.
you must have an offspring that's almost fertile. That's almost
Not,
that
I
will
don't
be
think,
fertile.
right. So
That's
so it's like if I think this is right. If you mix a horse with a donkey, you get some hybrid that has a name, but
Yeah,
that child could no longer have a child of its own.
right.
So it's some like biological statement of the species needs to be able to procreate.
Hmm. So we know that all humans on Earth right now can have sex with each other, pick any two at random, and barring any genetic problems, they
Or
will all
personal
have
problems.
fertile offspring. Yeah, fertile offspring.
Right.
So we all know all humans on Earth are the same species. So this must
Right.
mean the Illyrians went off, genetically engineered themselves. Somebody did an experiment, and then they found that they couldn't have offspring, or the offspring were infertile. And they're like separate species.
I think that is correct if we are applying the definition of species as we understand it today.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true in this. I mean, that's possible. I thought it was bigotry. It's like
So-
you guys are separate. You guys are separate species. Like you're so far
Mhm.
from us. Like
So you're saying they didn't do, they should have done a bunch of experiments
yeah,
to get the good data, get that raw data, baby, and check to make sure that they're actually a separate species. You're saying they didn't do that. They isolated them and called them a separate species for bigotry reasons. I see
think
it.
so. It's
I
like
see
you
it.
guys messed with your DNA. You're no longer humans. I think right.
I think
so
that's
like
right.
you build it into the language of their separate species. I mean, I guess the
Technically-
test would be for Una to have a child with someone on the ship, and then to wait a bunch of years, and then see if that child can also have a kid.
Okay, so she's got to get Pike's Pike.
Season 2, get it? Okay, but wait. But this goes to my next question: is like if we have humans colonizing a bunch of different planets, a bunch of different star systems, those
Mhm.
planets will have different environments. And so,
Yeah.
say you have a planet that has a lot of sunlight, has a really thin atmosphere or something, wouldn't it be advantageous for those people to have better melanin or better, I don't know, better hair that covers their skin that doesn't get damaged directly? And so, eventually, over time, people would evolve in that direction. So, does a multi-planeted humanity necessarily mean that we're no longer humans? Will up
So
spread?
on the timescales of Star Trek, I'm going to say no. Here's why. Because on Earth, we have humans went everywhere on Earth,
Yep.
basically, except I think Antarctica. And we evolved different, physical and mental attributes in different places around the Earth, I think.
Yeah.
And now, through the last 500 years, we came back together and we found, even though we've been separated for maybe 50,000 years, something like that, we found we're the same species still. So even with that separation, for an extended period of time, tens of thousands of years, still the same species. Which means,
It's the
I think, if
same-
we were on separate planets,
Mhm.
it would take more than like 10,000 years, which is much longer than Starfleet's been around to see separate species. So I'm going to say no.
Just to be clear, you're saying we're the same species because we have viable children when we procreate,
Mhm.
but we do have different genetics that lead to different phenotypical manifestations, right? Like
I think
I'm
so.
thinking about there's this one group of people. I think it's in the Southeast Asian islands. It's like
Yep.
they, for whatever reason, their culture can hold their breath underwater for like 6, 10, 15 minutes. Like it's incredible. It's like superhuman compared to everyone else in the world. And then if you take their kids and you transport them to US, like they still retain this ability to hold their breaths. It's wild. So effectively, they have selected their genes to be breath holding people. And so I would consider that to be like a different physical trait based off of your genes, but they're still human.
They're still human, yeah. So I think, that means I would guess if they can hold their breath for 10 minutes and a regular person can hold their breath for 2 minutes,
Like
they have
60
offspring,
seconds,
it's going to be some average. Or maybe one or the other. But they will have offspring and they'll be normal people.
So I guess this is my question. If humans are evolving on different planets, at what point do we stop calling them humans? I guess you have to have once a generation, like report back to the home planet and produce a child. And like,
I mean, you got to get that data. So they'd have to be isolated for a long time. I think the length of time required is too long for a new species to arise in the timescales of Starfleet and the Federation.
Oh yeah.
But if you had genetic engine, go ahead.
I'm now stepping out of Star Trek, like thinking
see.
humans when we colonize. Hopefully, we colonize as much of the galaxy as we can, and much of the universe as we can. Like we're gonna have genetic drift.
I think that's right. And I'd say we colonize all this many stars in the galaxy, and then there's a societal collapse, and then there's a bunch of planets with independent human colonies that can't really communicate anymore because of the civilizational collapse. Probably after 50, 100, 200,000 years, there'll be enough genetic drift that'll be like, oh, we're a different species now. Maybe.
These people are kind of lizards or whatever it is for that
Yep,
planet.
they'll turn into lizard people, come back, and then run the government on Earth.
Did we just expose it? Did we just expose it? Okay, let's go to the next clip. We gotta move on. We gotta move.